Hello out there. My name is Laulu Akonde, and you are on to Inside Sources. Today, I start a series of my take titled The $1 Billion Mambilla Power Project Saga. Part 1 is subheaded The Paris Update. For decades, Nigeria has been trying to build the Mambilla power plant, which alone will give us over 3,000 megawatts of electric power. Imagine how transformative that could be. But for the same decades, corruption, indiscipline, and a sheer lack of patriotism has stalled this excellent promise. This past week, for instance, in Paris, in front of an arbitration panel under the auspices of the International Chamber of Commerce, two former presidents of Nigeria, former President Obasanjo and former President Buhari, stood as witnesses in the case involving the federal government and the Sunrise Power and Transmission Company, also owned by Nigerian Chief Leno Adesanya. That is a novelty by itself, but we should interrogate that aspect later. The issue for now is that there is contention on whether indeed Sunrise has a legal contract with the federal government of Nigeria, a pending legal contract regarding the development of the Mambilla power project. Sunrise Company is arguing that the federal government did award a contract for it to do a build, operate, and transfer contract to develop the Mambilla project in 2003. That claim has been disputed by the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who was the president at that time, who has now said that there was no approval from him or even from FEC. President Obasanjo has accused the then Minister of Power, Dr. Oluwagnoye, of doing this arbitrarily. And of course, Dr. Agnoye has vehemently denied any wrongdoing and is insisting that the president, that is President Obasanjo, certainly did approve the contract. Agnoye is vehemently implying that President Olusegun Obasanjo is not telling the whole truth. Now, the case has moved from Obasanjo to Yaradua Jonathan and then to the Buhari administration before it got to the Tinubu administration. All of them trying to settle the matter, and there has been off and on in that effort. Inside Sources has now been reliably informed that in 2005, there was a legal opinion from the Afe Babalola chambers that confirmed that indeed there is a legal contract between the federal government and Sunrise. But there are also claims from the federal government that the Sunrise Company is involved in other contentious businesses with the federal government, for which reason the presidency was advised not to settle with Sunrise after ministers actually met with the guy. In some instances, those allegations seem to border on attempts to game the Nigerian system. Now the Chinese, who are the ones that are going to finance the project, they have agreed. They are insisting that the federal government should properly terminate its understanding, its contract, if there was one, with Sunrise, that is with Chief Leno Adesanya's company, so that there can be progress with the project. Inability to reach such an agreement pushed the dispute into an international arbitration in France between the federal government and one of its own citizens, where we now have two presidents this past week witnessing in court. There are several angles to this story, and it's a very truly complicated stuff. But today, I will only make 2 or 3 comments for now. The first comment is that this is Nigeria's political elite deciding to wash its dirty deals, not exactly publicly, but certainly abroad. That doesn't look very good. Secondly, it seems that the strategy of the federal government is to argue, like it did in the P&ID case, that the claims of the Sunrise Company is enmeshed in corruption. It is for this reason that Dr. Oluwagnoye has been charged in the case that he is now facing regarding corruption. Now, it would seem that the federal government ought to come out with much more damning evidence to sustain this corruption strategy, because based on what we have seen so far and what we have heard, it is still an Herculean task to nip this on corruption. My third point and final point for now is that there are a number of Nigerian lawyers who are calling attention to the fact of how much the federal government is paying local and foreign lawyers at currency to sustain this case. in the international court. There have been claims and speculations of several tens of millions of dollars that have been spent already over the years. Some of the lawyers involved are Mr. Shashore, SAN, and then White and Case, the international law chambers, on the side of the federal government. Now, on the side of Sunrise, we have several Nigerian lawyers led by Mr. Fidelis Odita, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who is also a King's Counsel. Of course, there are also people like Mr. Femi Falana, Mr. Bolan Elias, and Chief Bolaji Ayorinde, all Senior Advocate of Nigeria. So it is essentially an all-Nigerian case, which is the reason why I said it will seem that our elites have chosen to ash out this troubling matter abroad in the hope that it will not become public. I think there has to be a better way to resolve this, because ultimately the judgment will be public and many dirty things may be exposed. Watch out. But for now, hands crossed. And there you have it. Inside Sources will be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, as we continue the conversation on the future of Nigeria, I have with me a consummate Nigerian politician, somebody who has served as a councillor, became a state assembly member, represented his state in the Federal House of Representatives, and then became a senator of the Federal Republic, and then went ahead to serve in the presidency as the presidential advisor in National Assembly. He's an APC chieftain, and I'm glad to welcome to Inside Sources Senator Enang, who actually also contested for governor of Akwa Ibom in 2023. Senator Enang, you are welcome to Inside Sources.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. So we have quite a few issues, but I wanted us to start, from the budget that is going on right now. And so I'm going to ask a broader question, but I'll use the budget as the anchor. The way we do budgeting in Nigeria, so you have worked all through the spectrum, and especially as special advisor on National Assembly, you've done quite a lot of budget. Do you think that the way we do budgeting, what kind of future has it been able to deliver? How can we package the kind of future that we all know Nigerians deserve through the budgeting process, based on your experience?
I want to commend Mr. President for the conception of the budget, and again for perhaps dropping the concept of January to December budgeting, which has delivered little. And I want to say that with respect, that if we examine the budget and the outcomes of the budget, we may be challenged in having a lot of deliverables, because it has not been able to deliver in terms of low revenue generation, low revenue mobilization, and not prioritizing revenue allocation. Now, what I mean by revenue allocation is prioritizing that, look, we are in 2023, 2024. What are we going to show at the end of 2024 season for Nigerians to appreciate that we are going to have much in 2025 to be able to also show in 2026, which we will show cumulatively for the 2027 elections. Sectorally also, in works, what did we attain in 2023, 2024? What can we show? What can the President commission in each state in 2024, 2025? What is the extent to which we have continued ongoing projects inherited from the Buhari administration, which we can budget and exit, so that we can exit and will be commissioned by President Tinubu in 2025, 2026 to show in each state, each region, in 2027 campaigns? What is the extent to which each of the sectors, to which it aligns with the President's vision of renewed hope agenda? To which extent? The budget and the budgeting process, from all the hearings of the complaints we've had from the legislators, from the ministers, in view of their complaining about their allocation, does not seem to reflect or answer these questions. So I will urge Mr. President, I will urge the Chief of Staff who is a veteran, and all the Office of the Secretary of Government coordinating, and the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Minister of Finance, to please take up the budget. As I have read the budget, I have almost gone through most of the sectors. It is not reflective that it is capable of giving Mr. President some much to commission in 2025, which it can be proud of in 2026 sectorally. So each of these officers should come together, and then the economic management team, and take each of the sectors. The budget is still being worked on in the National Assembly.
Yes.
And thank God they were able to overcome the rush to say January to December. And then look at each of the ministries and say, look, this is what we want to deliver in solid minerals. This is what we want to deliver in works. This is what we want, one or two or three things we want to commission in each state, in each region, in work. This is what we want to attain in railway. This is what we want to attain in water resources. This is the number of dams. This is what we want to report on agriculture. This is the milestones that we want to be able to report in education, and then work towards that. The way it is, what we are having and what they are having and defending at the National Assembly, if it is passed like that, it will give them a problem and questions to answer in the field of campaigns in 2026, 2027.
What do you say?
I want to say, yes.
Why do you say that?
I want to say, I'm saying that because I am conscious that given the minute allocations given to certain projects and certain ministries, they may not have what to show. Given the way some of the projects which were near to exit are abandoned or given low allocation, we will not be able to commission those projects.
Do you want to cite examples?
I don't want to get near to my state and get near to my region. Take, for instance, the Calabar to Ikorekbena Highway.
Okay.
It's being funded under the NNPC and FIRS tax project. Now, there has been a lot of delay in releasing funds, perhaps again due to some tardiness on the part of the states in paying compensation. Now, when you look at the budget, you have something like some 20 million, some 100 million. Meanwhile, these are projects we've committed over the whole stretch, about 20-25 billion.
Already?
Yes, already. And yes, there has been consumer price changes. There's been changes in cost of material, changes in almost everything, which they need to rescope the project.
Right.
Now, you provide that in the budget, and that goes through most of the projects under which were at advanced stages. Take again the East-West Road.
Right.
Take away take also the Lagos-Ibadan. Take the Abuja-Lokoja Benin. Take the Abuja-Kaduna Kanu Medugri. I think that one they have something of 75 billion because of some little access of certain person. They have 75 billion in that project. Now, provided by the budget office and the Minister of Budget, is provided there. Now, if you have all that, and then this is 2025, by 2026, by end of 2025, Mr. President is supposed to go commission some of these projects at that level. What will you commission? Now, go to Minister of Agriculture. You have a situation, almost the same situation. Go to the railway. You have challenges. Go to water resources. Go to most areas that we should show during the campaigns. Now, we may not have what to show if we have this level of budgeting. That is why I'm saying that this team, Mr. President's team, should go sectorally, take before they pass the budget, and then say, this is the presidential priorities. What President Obasanjo did at that time was, when he had these challenges, he removed some of them and said, these are presidential initiative projects. And then took it and got it supervised through the, it was under Ministry of Works, but he gave it a presidential look. And called it presidential initiative. And he was able to give milestones, and he was able to show at at the end, and Yaradua and Jonathan continued. So, and this is what President Buhari did also, prioritizing, giving milestones, giving deadlines on when it should be, and perhaps sometimes fixing tentatively possible commissioning dates. So if it runs into a problem, it can approach the National Assembly for a supplementary budget or supplementation, and then had some emergency powers, had some funds which it could release pending National Assembly. So if we don't do this, the president and the presidency and the APC will be relying on projects of states, and we're relying on governors to justify what they have done for APC to go for the next election. And the party, the APC, should also take interest in the budgeting process, because the budget is intended to implement the policies of the All Progressive Congress. The chairman, also the party, looked over what each of the committees were doing, what each of the ministries were doing, the extent to which, and even the party, the chairman before Oshomole, what each of the ministries were going to be able to deliver, and how this budget were able to tailor into the programs.
Was that through the tripartite committee?
Yes, it was through the tripartite committee, and again there was a committee headed by the vice president, Professor Osibanjo, who is the chairman of the National Economic Council.
Right.
He also had oversight. He also had powers. He also had look over. That is why I was oscillating between the president's office, or the office of the chief of staff, the president's office, the vice president's office, and office of the chief of staff, working with the director general, with the minister of budget. No, minister of budget, Senator Udoma.
Yeah.
We had, and periodically we were meeting to review the extent to which, even while the budget was working, and then we had meetings with the Senate President, the Speaker, the Deputy Senate President, the Deputy Speaker, the Chairman of Appropriation of the House and the Senate, and the Leader of the House and the Senate, to make sure that each of the projects, and most of these things, sometimes it is concluded in the House of Saraki, the President of the Senate then, and sometimes when the Vice President attendance at the Aguda House. So, Mr. President and his team should activate this process. Otherwise, it will not have what to show. And Mr. President has one of the biggest challenges. It has the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is that the governors of the states have so much money in their hands. They have more money after the removal of the subsidy than the federal government.
Put together.
They has more money. It has more spendable money than the federal government, because the federal government is challenged by security, is challenged by food, and by the food crisis, and so on. Let me not say crisis, food challenges.
Inflation.
And of course, inflation, right? And of course, the state governments have strong mouth more than the federal government. And so
they should be concerned about the food inflation. They can sort it out.
It is the business of the state governments to produce food, because they control land. They have money to deploy for agriculture. They have the water bodies. They have the federal government only has land in the Federal Capital Territory. And so now the state governments are not prioritizing agriculture. They are not putting their money there. They are prioritizing roads. They are prioritizing other projects,
infrastructure,
which they can show and commission and tell the people, look, this is what we have done. Look at this, the Tinubu administration. Hunger is caused by Tinubu. Meanwhile, it is the hunger that has been caused by Tinubu, quote and unquote, that has made, by the removal of the subsidy, that has made money available to them, which they now use to blackmail Tinubu and the federal government. So this is the challenge that the federal government and the Tinubu administration has, which it has to find a way, of addressing it taking control of the budget process
Yes.
to make sure that in each sector, it has what to deliver and deliver with timelines.
Okay, but I mean, very excellent insight, and I'm not surprised because this was your job for several years. But I want us to take it a little slightly off that direction to ask the question, in your view, but based on your experience, do you think that the amount of money that we are spending is big enough for a country the size of Nigeria? For instance, this budget, I think, is it 47 or 49 trillion? Is it, in your view, your personal view, and based on your experience, and where we want the country to go, is it big enough?
Well, you don't have to say it is big enough or too small. You just have to say, budget is based on what we intend to realize by way of revenue. And when we realize it, we share to the state, we share to the local government. What is the budget? How much does the state have? How much does the local government have? What remains for the federal government? Federal government is budgeting 49 plus trillion. But the entire budget of Nigeria is not 49 trillion. The entire budget of Nigeria
still be less than 60.
No, the entire budget of Nigeria is the culmination of the federal government allocations, state government allocations, and local government allocations.
Yeah.
That is what makes up the budget of Nigeria. But the budget of the federal government is just 49 trillion.
But
plus.
I'm saying, Senator, that the entire budget cannot be up to 60 trillion.
Yeah, but we're not talking about what we should spend. We're talking about what have we realized. You can only spend from what you realize.
Okay, but
otherwise you go borrowing.
Okay.
And of course we have gone borrowing,
so
which we ought not to go borrowing.
Okay, good. Just before you get to that, which is exactly where I'm going. So this is I'll give you, a perspective, and then you will comment on it. So it will seem to me that part of the challenge is that we are just not spending enough. And especially with all the devaluation of our currency and all the other things, inflation and here and there, that if we have a population of 200 million, over 200 million people, I mean, compare it to the budget of New York, there's the school of thought that says that, look, get the money whichever way you can get it, so that by spending a lot, you can reflate the economy, and that some of this our conservative attitude, although it has getting better, of trying to spend not too much because we don't want to borrow, and this is just a perspective, and I wanted your take, that it might itself be a way that we are limiting ourselves. The counter to that is that, well, look, we've borrowed a lot. I think the DG of the DMO, the budget, what is it called?
Debt Management Office.
Debt Management Office, DMO, was talking about that. I think, about 134 trillion, that's a lot of money. But why do you think that we shouldn't get the money wherever we can get it if we are able to use it in a demonstrable way that can push this country in the right direction? So
well, we shouldn't get money wherever we can get, because whatever the devil gives you, he will come for it he will come for it, looking for it from a pound of flesh near the heart.
Okay.
Now, I'm referring to loans.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a friend of the World Bank. I'm not a friend of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. I'm not a friend of the Bretton Woods institutions, because they like lending money to you, and they will not lend money to you for areas that will produce for you to pay back. They will lend money to you with respect, and I take responsibility for what I'm saying. They will lend money to you for frivolities that will make you not able to realize from what you have borrowed money for, so that you can pay back from that source.
But they can't force you to take it.
They will encourage you to take it, and they will tell you,
okay,
and they will tell you that is the best, that is, and when you are stressed. And of course, the internal management process of Nigeria of managing debt and managing loans does not attach compulsively that it is the source that you take loan to fund that will enable you, that will pay back, that you will generate to pay back. It always signs that it will pay back from oil. Take, for instance, I was presidential liaison when the question of loan for Kaduna State
Right.
was being negotiated. And it caused a big problem between the National Assembly, led by Saraki, and the Kaduna State government, led by El Rufai, and the senator representing Kano, Kaduna, Shehu Sani, who incidentally again was the chairman of the Committee on Loans, Aids and Debt Management. And those questions that were asked, and I joined in asking those questions. And they said it is the president that has forwarded it. I said, no. National Assembly, whenever the president forwards the request for a loan, it is not for the National Assembly to approve. It is for the National Assembly to call the states. Ask the states, what is the source of your repayment? What are you going to do with this money?
The money is going to the states. You mean?
Yes. What are you going to do with this money? How will this money pay back to the states?
Yeah.
You know, and what is the security? Is it the statutory allocation to the states, or should it not be the items on which you want to invest this money on that should pay back? And as liaison, I join in asking
the Senate.
I join in making that
argument
available that the National Assembly should consider those questions when it was considering it. Now, it brought a big problem. I don't want to draw the conclusion, but the conclusion is in the public space now. You know.
Yeah, because there's a lot of controversies now about.
Yes, that's the conclusion that is in the public space now.
Yeah, and the current government is now having to.
Nigeria should not be owing what it is owing. If what we took the loan for is what is paying back the loan, but most of the loans are now being paid back with oil. Again, the National Assembly, the executive, the presidency abdicated its functions.
On what issue?
In what it forwards to the National Assembly and the way the Debt Management Act provides that the National Assembly the president, in presenting the budget, the request for loans to the National Assembly, should attach the loans and conditions. But the National Assembly, the president will now say, will be on such conditions and terms as the Minister of Finance shall provide, which the National Assembly shouldn't provide. The National Assembly should provide the terms and conditions in the loan before in its instrument of passage. So
not that they should let the finance.
Not that, yes, not to vest the power in the mind. So when the Minister of Finance now exercises the power, he exercises arbitrarily. It's not, sometimes it's under some pressure.
So the Debt Management Act, what does that act say about
it? It says and provides that the terms and conditions should be as provided by the National Assembly.
But the practice that you observe is that is the finance minister that is playing
the National Assembly. The finance minister will provide that. It will say that, and the National Assembly will approve for them. So this is what has collapsed the loan and the debt management situation, which has led to a lot of loans. So the loan situation is a failure of the National Assembly, not the Akpabio.
Not just the Akpabio said.
Akpabio led.
This has been going on.
It has been going on even in our time on the floor. And I had raised it most times, you know. So...
And just so, Senator, just so our audience understand this properly, you know, because we can't assume, because even as you are saying it, I'm trying to follow up. So what it is that you are saying is that when the states get a loan,
yes,
it is the National Assembly that should approve the conditions.
Yes.
But what we are having, you know, and just not just now, is that is the finance minister that is doing it.
Yes.
And that's against the act.
Yeah, not just the states. You know, the states, each of the states of the federation is not a party to, is not known in international law. It doesn't have legal personality or state status in international law, so it cannot borrow. It is the states, it is the country that now guarantees it.
Yes.
So if the state fails, if the country fails to pay, if that state fails to pay, like what is happening in Ogun State now, it is Nigeria's asset because it is the guarantor. It is Nigeria that is known in international arbitration, international law, and as a state that can contract, you know, that takes responsibility. So the states, the country, and the debt management process And the National Assembly should be careful, even in loans that is taken by the federal government. I've always made reference to the airport. You know, we took loan from China to develop the airport. But how do we pay the loan? How is it being paid for? We now say, look, the revenue we get monthly, the loan repayment exceeds revenue. Why should it exceed? It shouldn't exceed, because it is what is generated from the airport sector, you know, from the aviation sector, and from that particular item or from which it took the loan, that should pay back. And make no mistake, the loans that we are paying for now, that we are repaying now, is not the loan that Tinubu takes. It's not the loans that Buhari may have taken. It is the loans that may have been taken even before the Obasanjo administration, and some after the Obasanjo administration. Because some loans run for a period, they give you a moratorium of 3-4 years, they give you a period of this thing, and by the time you come and by the time it is due, it is the government, whatever government that is in power at that time, that is paying. So these are the questions and the issues that are challenging the Tinubu-led federal government in debts and loans management, which it should find a way of coming out of it. First, it could renegotiate renegotiate the loan. Second, it should hold persons accountable. Those who were responsible for managing the programs for which these loans were taken. 3, those who even signed
the institutions. Okay, I want
the institutions. Even if you have left government,
okay, you should still be held responsible.
Yes, because
and that's a very important point, Senator, that I want us to dig into, because it speaks to the delivery. Of whatever it is, all these loans that we have collected over the years, that we have taken over the years, if that's the right language. You know, based on your experience, where are they on the ground?
I've made some suggestions twice or thrice to the. I've made some suggestions to the federal government. It should set up a judicial commission of inquiry on loans and debt, so that we find out the loans that were taken in 2020, in year 2000, 2001, 2005, 2007, 2010. What was it? How much of it came into the country? Because some of these loans don't come into the country. And sometimes it asks you, how reasonable?
Okay, before we get to that, just to be accurate, I think you're referring to after Obasanjo, because you remember
No, I'm not specific about any government.
Because of the dates?
No, I'm not specific about any administration.
Okay.
You know, I'm specific about the loan itself.
Okay.
What did we do with it?
That's the
Where is it? And not so that I will not be taken as if I'm asking for a probe or investigation on any particular administration. You are investigating where we took the money from, what we did with it, what is it paying, how is it paying back? Why? And we even ask those who were responsible, how reasonable was this? And again, we investigate. To what extent did this money come into the country?
Exactly. So
because some of these monies, it is being rumored, and it has been even when we're in the legislature, that some of them did not come into the country. Some of them are subject of arbitration outside. And yet, but then arbitration or no arbitration, you are bound to pay, because it has been credited against you.
But how is it possible, even just at the level of theory and speculation, how is it possible for a loan to be taken by a country like Nigeria and the loan doesn't come in? Just educate us. Senator. No, just
I think all Nigerians know about it.
That the money will come in.
It's
just educate us on that.
Okay. Take, for instance, we say we are getting loans for some agricultural programs, like it used to. Some country will give us a loan, and it says part of those loans, they will say they will give you some tractors, and some of the tractors they give you is a Nissan Jeep.
It's from their country.
Yes, Nissan Jeep from the country that is giving you.
Yeah.
Now, you took loan for agriculture. Is Nissan Jeep part of the things that you want to do for agriculture? No.
But
is Nissan, and the other things, the luxury cars you are taking, is it part of it? They use it to sell their own products. And yet you have signed for it. And some of these...
But we will collect the design jeeps anyway.
Yes.
But the point is that is not what we need.
Yes. Some of these things don't actually deliver to the federal government.
Yeah.
Some deliver in country, some deliver out country, some deliver and it goes into individuals' use. Somebody just becomes Oga because Nigeria has taken loan and it will be paid from oil.
So now I understand your point for a judicial inquiry.
Yes. Okay, take for instance. Are you opposed when IMF and all the institutions were saying that Nigeria should remove fuel subsidy? And what did they give us? They gave us palliatives, things to go and share and eat. How will that repay the loan? And then we have to repay. I asking, is it grant or is it not grant? Is it loan? Is it not? You will still pay even after. We have removed subsidy. Our currency is gone. It has helped the value of the dollar,
Okay.
and it has given us volume of money without value of money, with least purchasing power. So when you say that our budget is 47 trillion, how much is that in dollars? Yeah. Let me not go into it and let me not depress Nigerians.
And that was the point. That was where I started that, I don't think we're even spending enough. Quite a very useful engagement that we've had. So I'd like to ask you then that if you look at all these monies that have been spent, it will seem that even based on a lot of the things that you have talked about, it will seem as if it's not really going to the grassroots. What kind of reform, what kind of budgeting reform will you then propose? How can we halt this trend, Senator?
Nigeria is not running a unitary administration. It's running a federation. And so when we talk of the grassroots, the federal government has a role to play in diplomacy, national security, international security, foreign relations, and regional development, and so on. Some question of the grassroots is that of the local government, the state government, and with policy directions from the federal government. But unfortunately, like I said, the governors have very strong mouth. They push everything to the federal government while they collect the money. Meanwhile, they spend more ridiculously. That is why they still want to control local government. Meanwhile, let me suggest that EFCC, ICPC, and the other agency on financial intelligence should please have office in each local government because they have more clients now. They have more clients. It's going to be expensive. They shouldn't hire houses, but they have enough staff to have office to monitor because that is going to be another source of sleaze. And if you start having that and then they see that you are present, there will be sanity and they will start applying the money on what you can see at the grassroots. Please let me make this point again before I come back to this. The question of Nigeria borrowing. Nigeria shouldn't borrow. In 2024, 2025, 2026, Nigeria shouldn't borrow. Because the money that flows into the central bank, the money that Nigerian Port Authority, NIMASA, and other institutions under the Ministry of Finance generate, NNPC generate, and use as a government. I've always said that each of these places behave as if it were a government. And if Nigeria is a parastatal, NNPC behaves as if Nigeria is a parastatal and it is the government. Central Bank behaves like that. And Port Authority, NIMASA, they behave as if they are doing Nigeria a favor.
Do you think that's still going on at this?
It is going on, and I take responsibility for this. The Tinubu administration should implement the full amplitude of the treasury single accounts, so that whatever money comes in to each of these institutions goes first into the treasury. And then they now draw according to budget. And this budget should not be just budget as approved by the National Assembly and transmitted to them. It should be budget as approved by the National Assembly and transmitted to Mr. President, who will now examine the extent to which the frivolous expenditure and programs of each of these agencies is being undertaken, which is what is collapsing the federal government. And it can now say, look, this and this and this should not happen under it. Because the president presents budget to the National Assembly of each of these agencies, what they call government-owned enterprises.
Right.
But when it is passed, it is sent to the agencies directly. It doesn't go to the president for scrutiny. And each of them, the Budget Office of the Federation, the Minister of Budget and Budget, should look and examine the extent. They will be able to arrest some of these things and make these monies available. The same goes for the budget of the security agencies and the security and intelligence agencies. What they spend and how they spend also affects the federal government.
How?
It affects the money available to the federal government. It affects inflation. Go back to almost all the expenditure, the controversies that has trailed the expenditure of over the security over the period. You will know that it is the unsupervised allocation and expenditure, which the budget and budgeting and the finance and expenditure system has not been able to track and arrest. This is what has caused a sleaze. I read something some days ago, how somebody, a witness in court, testified how it is an evidence in court.
Right.
I take no responsibility,
of course,
for it. It is evidence in court. I'm not saying it is true or not. But he said that he was able to transfer 22 billion naira, change it in dollars,
right, for
an officer of the government. This is the kind of unsupervised thing that leads to this, Now,
and that happens a lot.
I looked at the budget and I saw an allocation of over 200 billion for Nigeria Intelligence Agency Medical Institution. I pray it is a wrong figure. I pray it is wrong. I pray it is not correct. I pray it is a typo. But if it is, how can you allocate that to one institution, an item in one institution, Nigeria Intelligence Agency, for its hospital or something? I pray it is not correct.
How much is it again? Did you call it
270 something billion? As it is, and I pray it is a typo.
Is that in the current budget?
In the current budget, I saw it online in what I printed out. Now, if you allocate that, assuming it is correct, I can't say it is. I won't say it's correct. How do you allocate that when the entire Ministry of Foreign Affairs is looking for funds to service its diplomatic missions? How do you allocate that when the presidency has an hospital, the NIA, NSA, SSS, the police, and all that other agencies are quote unquote under the presidency? They have and the army. But that is under the presidency. It is presidency, Minister of Defense.
Right.
They can co-use the hospital at the Villa Hospital. They can co-use that of the SSS. They can co-use that of the army. And they can, when you have a situation of challenge like we have, you reduce certain level of accommodations and then concentrate on getting the country out of where it is before we can get to making some agencies giving comfort to some institutions.
Right.
Yes, it may have been provided for, And again, in managing our security, we should give priority to the police. You catch a situation where the police is treated about 15% or 20%.
20% of their requests.
20% of the level that the SSS is being treated.
Okay, comparative.
20%, even 15 or 10% of the level that the NIA is being treated. Even the civil defense appears treated better than the police. We've established the Police Trust Fund, we've established Ministry of Police Affairs and all that. No, so it is this
Are you talking about what is happening currently or a cumulative effect?
Cumulative and currently.
Okay.
Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because it is this mismatch, it is these misallocations that is not going to give the president, the federal government, the APC, enough of reasonable things to
talk about,
to show was it going for the next election, with its candidate at Tinubu. And it is what is we are not getting careful enough so that we can allocate funds to priority areas so that we can have what to show and bring the economy out of the woods.
Okay. I mean, thank you so much. Because of our time,
Yes.
let's begin to wrap up. And I wanted to ask you, so Nigerians are familiar now with the idea of budget padding all over the place. Number one, do you think that is still happening? And then, how do you think the idea of constituency projects are justified, especially in the way that you have seen when you are even the licensed person, how the assembly now dictates to the executive certain projects that they must do, relegating the priorities set
by the executive. That's why I thank you for this, and you share my views. It does appear, let me be kind enough to say that it does appear that the executive has surrendered the budgeting process and its powers to the legislature. And it appears, let me be kind enough to say, it appears that they are trailing behind the legislature and not taking the lead. You remember the issues that caused the question of budget padding. I don't agree on the question of budget padding there, because whatever I don't agree on question of padding, because if there is padding, what you do is you withhold assent. Mr. President withheld assent. President Buhari withheld assent when he didn't agree.
Right.
Now, what the president should do, and I'm glad they may be doing it this time. That is why they haven't insisted on the January to December. You remember last year, they passed the budget on the 30th or 31st, and he was brought to the table to sign on the 1st. Without sending the budget to each of the ministries to see the extent to which its renewed hope agenda is reflected in the budget. It signed, and after reading the budget, after signing, it now saw that it wasn't reflective, and so they now did budget amendment and repealed that and passed the budget, which was signed, I think, 23rd July 2024, which is what they are still implementing, which is why perhaps they want to say that they want to take the budget to June, and I say it should be taken to April. Now, when the budget is passed by the National Assembly, Mr. President should do what we used to do, what the President Buhari used to do with Vice President Osinbajo. He will send it to every ministry and even the party. They will look at what they call insertions, which does not reflect.
Insertions
Again, they will also look, because there is, from my investigation, the Ministry of Budget and National Planning did not do tripartite. What we call tripartite is that the Ministry of Budget will sit, the ministry defending the budget, making the budget will sit, and the stakeholder department, to look at, yes, you have uploaded your budget. Ministry of Industry, you have uploaded your budget. Come before the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, Finance, and Director General Office of the Budget. Justify what you have stated here, and justify the project. Which project are you abandoning? What is the main take that we are going to achieve in this budget under your? He didn't do it. So whatever they were loaded is what they printed and sent to the Federal Executive Council, and it was passed and forwarded to the National Assembly. It should now take the process of, after passing the budget, it should now do this quote-unquote tripartite, which ought to have been done earlier. So that let each ministry come and, even after making your input, come before the minister ministry, the economic team,
right,
and defend whether this is right or wrong. And then let the National Assembly have a representative there, so that if Mr. President has reservations, it should be sent back to them, to the legislature, to correct. Now, the question of not to correct, it should be sent back as reason for not assenting.
Final question, and it's just around what we've been talking about. What do you think about corruption? First of all, corruption in the budgeting process, corruption in government facility, government operations, and generally corruption in Nigeria. I will give you my view and then you respond. I believe, Senator, that corruption is a big problem that we have to deal with. We've done a lot about talking about restructuring, and I believe that we have to do restructuring. I even consider that President Tinubu is beginning to do restructuring by several means. But I think fighting corruption ought to also be on an even keel compared to the way we advocate for restructuring is the way that we should advocate to deal with corruption. That's my view. And if we leave it unattended to, we just be going around in circles. We never make any progress because there is so much corruption in our system. What's your view, Senator?
My view is that corruption thrives because there is collapse of the institutions. And when one institution collapses, we establish another one to overtake this one, and then that one collapses, we establish another one without addressing the question itself. We shouldn't have had the EFCC, ICPC come into the corruption process if the Office of the Auditor General and internal auditing were working.
Was it that it's
now the audit ought to have at that stage arrested and detected some of these things which are not wrong before it is paid.
Okay.
But Nigeria does not have an audit act. And there is a problem in the conceived audit act. The audit as it is, the head of the civil service of the Federation insists on appointing the Auditor General, who will be auditing the permanent secretaries and what is being done in each of the ministries. How will the person appointed by the head of the civil service, recommended for appointment, audit the permanent secretaries who are under the head of service? It is going round in a circle. Now, we had the police. It had problem. We now established the ICPC. It didn't seem to. It went into exam holding posts of people who were doing exam malpractice. We established EFCC. That one wasn't enough, and we established a financial intelligence. All of them are existing, and all of them are working pari passu. Now, it is the multiple institutions that is fueling corruption, the existence. I will believe, and I still say so, that we should collapse ICPC and EFCC and financial intelligence into one body, give it strength. We will save cost and we will make it more focused. That again, Nigerians, it is the innate in growing up Nigerians now. If you go to the National Assembly, somebody will say he is not in a juicy committee. What is a juicy committee? I will cover that with juice. Now, everybody wants something that brings in money, and some veiled money, some tainted money. And Nigerians respect people who have had access to money. Even the electoral process respect people who have access to money and brings money, no matter how they got the money. So the question is, how will we, if we stop celebrating corruption, if we stop celebrating people who are corrupt, if we stop and have this process, which was enforced under the Obasanjo administration, that if you are accused of corruption or you are standing trial for corruption and there is credible evidence, you should be stopped from contesting election. I, without apology, somebody was accused of corruption in Rivers State, and he was made a governorship candidate, and those issues are not being treated. The man is governor, and you can't ask that question again until he finishes. And who will ever ask? Somebody was accused of corruption in Rivers, in Kogi State, as being accountant general, auditor general or something. And he's been given ticket. Whatever else happens is now history. We are living with it. Now, how do we celebrate this kind of situation and then think that we will come out of corruption? When a young man sees that, he will think that that is the norm. Whereas that can't happen in America, can't happen in the United Kingdom. It can happen in Canada, it can happen in some countries, And these people will take the money, use it, get into estates, get into investment, and will be celebrated. So all the other people who were honest will be running after him, will be behind him. So how will we stop? How will you tell somebody who is going to the next office that it is good to be straight? But it is innate. If it is innate in you, inborn in you, and if you have shame, you will not be involved in it. And the EFCC and ICPC should go after every governor in the last administration, whoever it is. There is a trend that is going on in Nigeria. When a governor thinks that he is capable of being prosecuted, or he has some scented deals, he will do everything to bring a successor who will not allow the books to be opened. And
who don't even allow them to arrest you.
Who will not allow them to arrest you? Who will come to even arrange your bail? Who will come with convoy to make sure
to prevent
arrest? And so this is the kind of situation that the administration should try to discourage by encouraging honesty. The way it is going, the young men, the growing generation, even the grown generation, thinks that whenever you go into a public office, woe unto you if you don't make money from it. But they don't even think that you'll have to pay for it. If you don't pay for it here, you will account to it by God.
Certainly.
Yes.
That's a very good place to head it. I agree with you entirely that we have to deal with the issue of corruption. And I like your idea, that every governor should be investigated when they are finished. I only think that we then need to strengthen EFCC. EFCC clearly is the one that has the public profile, but ICPC also does have the responsibility. Hopefully, the president will consider really giving corruption a very, very big fight, because without it, I don't think we are going to make a lot of progress. But hopefully, they are hearing us. We won't relent. Thank you so much, Senator Ita Solomon James Enang.
Thank you very much
for coming to Inside Sources. And thank you for the insight that you have given us. And thank you for the contributions to national development.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Nigerians.
All right. And there you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, Nigeria will prevail, Nigeria will win, because we will relent. And we have hopes that things will get better. My name is Laolu Akonde, and I'll see you at the next edition. Thank you for watching.